There, you're welcome to our first lesson today in English language, and the topic we'll be looking at is modal auxiliaries and tenses. Modal auxiliaries and tenses. What do we mean by tenses? In English language, tenses are used to show when an action happens. That is, they tell us whether the action is in the past, in the present, or in the future. Tenses simply refers to when an action happened, whether it's in the past, in the present, or future. For instance, the simple ones we're used to, or the basic ones, like is, which usually talks about the present, and then you have was, which tells you about the past. So we have these other ones, other verbs in English that tell us about the time events happen as well. And those are auxiliary verbs, and we're going to look at them today. We're going to look at them. So what are these auxiliaries, modal auxiliaries? In English, they are special verbs that work with irregular verbs to express tenses and different ideas in a sentence. Modal auxiliaries are special verbs. And why do we call them special verbs? They are special verbs because there are other verbs that we are used to that we call the regular verbs. Okay? There are the other ones we refer to as the regular verbs, the commonly known verbs. For instance, run, jump, write. Okay? These are just some examples of regular verbs that with any word at all that depicts an action, because verbs are action words. We know that, okay? That's why we say those ones are regular verbs, the ones that we are used to, the ones we know that are the regular action words. They are the regular verbs. But these ones that we are considering today, the modal auxiliary, we say they are special verbs because they are not like the ones we have just looked at now. They are not like the regular verbs. They are very special because they need to work with the regular verbs to express either tenses or to show different ideas in a sentence. Now, in expressing tenses, they tell us whether the action is in the past, in the present, or future. And in expressing different ideas in a sentence, they could be used to show ability, they could be used to show permission, they could be used to show possibility, and other things. Recommendation, advice, they could be used to show different things in a sentence. So modal auxiliaries, we're going to see some examples, okay? But just know that modal auxiliaries are special verbs in English language. They are special verbs that work with the commonly known verbs, the main or the regular verbs, to express tenses and different ideas in a sentence. Now, some common modal auxiliaries are can, could, will, shall, may, might, would, should, must, and ought to. Okay, so these are some of the common modal auxiliaries that we have in English language. But for the sake of today's lesson, because our focus is on modal auxiliaries and tenses, all these modal auxiliaries are not going to function, or they're not going to feature in the ones we are going to look at extensively, because we're going to take them one after the other and look at them and see how they function to show tenses in English. So because our focus is on tenses, all of them will not be used because not all of them actually function to show tenses. Some show tenses, a lot of them do actually, and some others, they just portray different ideas in a sentence, like permission, possibility, ability, and the rest of them. Okay, so we're going to take them one after the other and see how they function in expressing tenses in English language. So the first set of the modal auxiliaries we're going to look at is can and may. We are looking at can and may together because both of them are often used to express present ability and permission. They are both used to express present ability and permission. Remember, the emphasis here is on present because we're dealing with modal verbs in their use as in their use to express tenses. Okay, so ability shows what you can do, what one is capable of doing, what can be done, and while permission shows permission is simply being allowed to do something. So we're going to look at how these words, these modal verbs can and may, are used to express this in the present tense form. Examples here: can in ability, use of can in expressing present ability. The first example is I can juggle 3 balls. That is something that is in the present. I can do this as the skill or the ability to juggle 3 balls. The second example says they can swim like fish. This is also something that is in the current or present state. They can swim like fish. It's something they do now. It's in the now. And the third example here says my mom can cook delicious dishes. My mom can cook delicious dishes. Also expressing something in the present. Okay, it's in the present. When we go over to some other modal auxiliaries we're going to look at, like could, we see how these same sentences are translated into the past tense form with the use of could. Okay, so these are examples of using can in expressing ability in the present form. Now let's look at using can to express permission, either to ask for permission or to grant permission in the present. The first one here says, can I go now? Can I go now? This is asking for permission, okay? And the second example says, you can use this restroom. You can use this restroom. This is a kind of granting permission. And both, if you look at them, are expressing something in the present, expressing actions in the present. One is asking permission in the present, and the other is granting permission in the present. So we've seen how can is used to express ability, being able to do something. In the present, I can juggle 3 balls. They can swim like fish. My mom can cook delicious dishes. And we have also seen how can is used in expressing permission, used to ask for permission, can I go now? And also used to grant permission. You can use the restroom. You can use the restroom. So now we're looking at the use of may in expressing permission in the present. The use of may in expressing permission in the present. Please, the focus is on expressing tenses, okay? Using modal auxiliaries to express tenses. So the first example here says, may I speak with the manager, please? This is a current action, a current event, something that is in the present. May I speak with the manager, please? And then this is also asking permission, to speak with the manager. The second example says, may I use your phone, mom? May I use your phone, mom? This is also asking permission for phone to be used. And mind you, it's also in the present. And the last example here says, visitors may use this restroom. Visitors may use this restroom. This is permission being granted for visitors to use a certain restroom. Okay, so just take note that the use of may in expressing permission is in the present tense. So next is the use of could and might. Now these are also going together just like can and may, because both are used to express past ability and possibility. They are both used to express past ability and possibility. Remember, the focus of the use of these modal verbs that we are considering in this lesson is on their use to express tenses in English, to express the time events happen, whether in the past, in the present, or in the future. So could and might are going together because as modal auxiliaries, they are used to express past ability, something that could be done in the past, and possibility, past possibility, something that was present, or possible rather, in the past. So first, let's look at the use of could in expressing past ability, then we move on to might. So the first example here says, I could juggle 3 balls. Now I use the same example or something close to the example I used when we were considering can in present ability. Remember there we used I can juggle 3 balls, and I told us that that indicates that the action is being carried out in the present or can be carried out in the present. Now this one says I could. I could. The first one I can. This one, I could juggle 3 balls. Now, if somebody says I could juggle 3 balls, the person is simply saying this is something I could do in the past, but right now I can't do it. It's something that is in the past, is a past event, a past action. So whenever you see could being used like this, it often implies something that happened in the past. I could juggle 3 balls. Now I cannot. Number 2 says they could swim like fish. This example also is closely resembles the example 2 we used when we were considering can. There we said they can swim like fish, and we also mentioned that that's indicates that it's being done in the present. It's a present thing. But here it says they could swim like fish. That means they could do this in the past. They could swim like fish in the past, but right now they can't swim like fish. This is an indication of something in the past. If it's something that's in the present, they will simply say, it will simply be read as they can swim like fish, or it could simply be said as they can swim like fish. But once you see could here instead of can, it shows it's in the past. Now the third example says, my mom could cook delicious meals. My mom could cook delicious meals. This means in the past my mom could cook delicious meals. She could do this, but maybe currently mom is now very old and mom can't cook delicious meals, and mom can't even cook at all. Okay, so when you use could, it always shows something in the past. I hope we're clear. I can juggle 3 balls. I can do it presently. I can do it in the present. I could juggle 3 balls. I could do it in the past. It was in the past. Now I can't. I can swim like fish. I can swim like fish. I can do it now. I could swim like fish. I used to do it before. I could do it before, but now I cannot. My mom can cook delicious dishes. That means my mom is able to cook delicious dishes. In the present, mom does it. But my mom could cook delicious meals. Means my mom could do it in the past, but right now, mom can't do it for some reasons. Next, we're looking at the use of could in expressing past possibility. Remember, we just looked at using could in expressing past ability. Okay, so here are some examples we're going to consider in order to have a better understanding of how could is used to show past possibility. The first example here says she could have done very well if she had studied hard. She could have done very well if she had studied hard. That means there was a possibility, there was a chance of her doing well if she had studied hard. And these are things or something that happened in the past. There was a chance. She could have done very well. There was a chance of her doing well if only she studied hard. Okay, so this is an indication of something that happened in the past. And the second example says, my mom could have made it to my graduation, but she lost her way. Okay, please just insert your she here. My mom could have made it to my graduation party, but she lost her way. This is also an indication of something that happened in the past. Probably mom already started out on the journey, but then somewhere along the line missed her way, couldn't locate the venue and something like that. Yeah, and then she didn't make it for the party. So my mom could have made it. There was a possibility of mom making it. There was a chance of mom coming for my graduation party, but she lost her way. That means eventually she didn't come. Okay. Now the third example here says the car could have broken down on their way home. The car could have. There is a possibility of the car breaking down on their way home. There was a chance that the car broke down while they were going home. So these 3 examples show the use of could in expressing past possibility, in expressing something that had a chance of happening in the past. Something that had a chance of happening in the past. She could have done well, very well, if she had studied hard, but she didn't study hard, and so she didn't do well. My mom could have made it to my graduation party, but she lost her way. And lastly, the car could have broken down. It's possible the car broke down on their way home. There is a chance that the car broke down on their way home. So next, we look at the use of might in expressing past possibility. Let me quickly state here before we move on. Might can also be used to express past ability, but it's seldom the case. It is hardly used. Okay, there are more common modal verbs that can be used to express past possibility, like could, okay, or was able to. Okay, so those are more commonly used than might. It can be used, but it's seldom used, and it's not really a straightforward thing. So we're just going to look at might in past possibility, how it is used to express past possibility. So some examples are here. The first one says, they might have missed their flight due to heavy traffic. They might have missed their flight due to heavy traffic. That means their flight, they might have, this is something suggesting what happened in the past. It could be as a result of the heavy traffic that they missed their flight. This could be the reason that they missed their flight. It has already happened, so it's in the past. And the next one says, he might have forgotten. Let me just underline this so that we know what the emphasis, what word actually carries emphasis. He says, he might have forgotten his phone in the car. He might have forgotten his phone in the car. Also, that suggests something that happened in the past. It is a chance that he left or forgot his phone in the car. And then the third one says, the car might have been taken home by the driver. Here again, suggesting something that's happened in the past, and that is also a possibility. It is possible that the driver has taken the car home. There is a chance that the car has been taken home by the driver. So it reads, the car might have been taken home by the driver. These three examples suggest, first, that these are events or actions that happened in the past, and secondly, that there is a chance of them happening. Every single example here shows a possibility of the action happening, and the action happening in the past. Okay? So the last set of modal verbs or modal auxiliaries that we'll be looking at in terms of being used to express tenses is the set that contains will and shall. Okay, well, will and shall, I think there is another set after this. Okay, but for now we are looking at will and shall. Both are also coming together because they are used to talk about future actions and plans. They are used to talk about future actions and plans, that is, things that are to be done in the future, that are yet to be done. They haven't been done, but they are going to be done. They are in the future. Okay, so let's look at will in the use of in expressing future actions. Let's look at will. So the examples we have here are: 1, I will go to church next week. Next week is still in the future. It hasn't come yet. And this is expressing a plan, to go to church next week, or an action of going to church. It will rain tomorrow. Tomorrow is in the future. So the will here is suggesting that these things haven't been yet, okay, but they are going to be there in the future. Whenever you see will indicate something in the future. And the last one here says, my friend will write his final exam next year. Next year also, as we know, is in the future. It hasn't come. So the use of will normally expresses future events or future actions. So next we're going to explore the use of shall in future actions. The use of shall in future actions. The first example here says, I shall meet you at the library. I shall meet you at the library. This is something that is going to happen, that hasn't yet happened. Okay, I shall meet you at the library. I'm going to meet you at the library. The number 2 here says, shall I bring you some water? Shall I bring you some water? Do I bring you some water? It hasn't been done. Now this is a question being asked of an action that could possibly be carried out in the future. And number 3 says, we shall go on with our lessons as planned. We're going to do our lessons the way we planned it. We're going to carry it out the way we have planned to do it. Now, let me quickly mention here that the use of shall in expressing future actions or in showing future actions is something that is not very common in commonly used, especially in American English. Shall is rarely used these days, but in British English it's still used, and especially in a legal context, that is among lawyers, okay, people that deal with the law, it's still commonly used, but normally it's not so commonly used as will, for instance. So just bear that in mind, that shall is not so commonly used in everyday life in expressing future actions. So we have seen how modal auxiliaries are used to express tenses. We saw the use of can in expressing present ability, the use of may in expressing present permission. We also looked at how shall is used to express present possibility, and the use of we looked at should, we looked at may, how it expresses present permission, and the others, might and others. So we're going to round this off by looking into some questions here. These are just here for practice. I'm leaving this with you. You practice with this, okay? So the instruction here says you use the correct modal auxiliary to complete modal auxiliaries to complete these sentences, okay? Use the correct modal auxiliaries to complete the sentences below. Now the first 2 questions here, they are for ability. Remember, we considered modal verbs that we use to consider present or past ability. Okay, so the first one says, I swim like a fish, is in the past. So you slot in the correct modal auxiliary that should be put here to indicate that this is something in the past. And then in the second one says, I swim like a fish. This is the present. So you use the correct modal auxiliary to complete this sentence to show that it's an action in the present. It conveys an ability in the present. Now the third one here is for permission. Okay, for asking permission. That I use your phone. I use your phone. Now pick the correct modal auxiliary from the ones we have explored to complete this sentence, to make it a complete sentence asking permission. And then the number 4 expresses past possibility. It expresses past possibility, and it expresses past possibility. So you slot in the correct modal auxiliary to show that. And the last one here, it shows the future action. So you fix in the correct modal auxiliary that will show that this is an action in the future. So with this, we come to the end of today's lesson. I hope you've learned something, but let me just quickly say this, that this is not something you just watch once and you feel you've gotten it. And I will also advise that as you are watching these videos, please be writing down the important things that you need to note down, okay? Write them down, and when you speak, please try to be using these words. Language is all about practice. You can't learn a language without speaking it, without saying it, without practicing it. Okay, so please, you do this work, and on our WhatsApp page we can try to fix the correction with daddies, mommies, aunties, and uncles, okay? And then if there are any questions, any challenges concerning this topic, well, feel free to put it down in the comment section below. We also look into that, okay? And to our parents out there, to our uncles and aunties, if this video has been helpful, please help us share the link to people that you think it would be of use to, or people it might be helpful to. Thank you so much. Hope to see you next week. Stay blessed and stay safe.